The Titan's curse. The bitter winter wind howled across the desolate landscape of Bar Harbor, Maine, as Percy Jackson stood at the edge of a cliff, his sea-green eyes scanning the turbulent waters below. At 14, he had already faced more monsters and gods than most demigods saw in a lifetime. But something about this mission felt different, dangerous. Beside him, Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena, fidgeted with her Yankees cap, her stormy gray eyes narrowed in concentration. Thalia Grace, newly resurrected daughter of Zeus, gripped her spear tightly, electricity crackling around her. They were here on a rescue mission, guided by Grover's distress call about two powerful half-bloods in need of extraction. As they approached Westover Hall, a forbidding military school that loomed against the night sky, Percy couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The castle-like structure seemed to repel the moonlight, its dark stones exuding an aura of ancient malevolence. "I don't like this," Thalia muttered, her punk-style hair ruffling in the wind. "It's too quiet." Percy nodded in agreement, his hand instinctively moving to his pocket where Riptide, his magical sword disguised as a pen, lay hidden. As they entered the school, the sounds of a dance in progress reached their ears, a stark contrast to the eerie silence outside. Navigating through crowds of students, they finally spotted Grover, looking nervous in his ill-fitting suit. He pointed out the D'Angelo siblings Bianca and Nico, two young half-bloods, unaware of their true heritage. But before they could make contact, a chilling presence entered the room. Dr. Thorne, the vice principal, was no ordinary mortal. As he ushered the D'Angelos away, Percy caught a glimpse of a forked tail beneath his coat, a manticore. What followed was a chaotic chase, through the school and onto the snowy grounds outside. Percy, driven by an instinct to protect, found himself cornered on the cliff's edge with Thorne and the D'Angelos. Just as all seemed lost, a silver arrow whistled through the air, striking the manticore. The hunters of Artemis had arrived. Led by Zoe Nightshade, the hunters quickly took control of the situation. But in the ensuing confusion, Annabeth was knocked off the cliff, disappearing into the darkness below with the wounded manticore. Percy's world shattered. "Annabeth!" he screamed, his voice lost in the howling wind. He moved to jump after her, but strong arms held him back. The loss of Annabeth hit him like a physical blow, leaving him dazed and hollow. The arrival of Artemis herself, in the form of a young girl with silver eyes, brought little comfort. The goddess took Bianca aside, offering her a place among the hunters. An offer the young girl accepted, much to Nico's dismay. As they made camp, Percy's mind raced. Annabeth was gone, potentially in the clutches of the enemy. The great prophecy loomed over them all, its meaning still shrouded in mystery. And now, with Bianca joining the hunters, the delicate balance of power among the children of the Big Three had shifted once again. Their respite was short-lived. Apollo arrived with the dawn, tasked with transporting the demigods and hunters to Camp Half-Blood. The sun god's customary brightness seemed subdued, a reflection of the gravity of their situation. The journey to camp in Apollo's sun chariot, disguised as a school bus, was tense. Thalia's fear of heights and inexperience with driving nearly led to disaster. while the rift between the hunters and campers grew more apparent with each passing mile. At Camp Half-Blood, the mood was somber. The news of Annabeth's disappearance spread quickly, casting a pall over the winter quiet camp. A council was called, and a quest was issued. But not to Percy, as he had hoped. Instead, Zoe Nightshade was chosen to lead the hunters on a mission to find Artemis, who had gone missing while tracking a monster powerful enough to potentially bring down Olympus. Frustrated and determined, Percy decided to take matters into his own hands. With the help of Blackjack, his loyal Pegasus, he set out to follow the quest, convinced that finding Artemis would lead him to Annabeth. His journey took him across the country, facing dangers, both mythological and mortal. In Washington, D.C., he encountered the Nemean lion, its golden fur impervious to weapons. It was only through quick thinking and teamwork that they managed to defeat the beast, using astronaut food as an unlikely weapon. As they pushed westward, the prophecy given for the quest began to unfold in terrifying ways. One shall be lost in the land without rain came true in the New Mexico desert, where Bianca sacrificed herself to save the others from a defective Talos automaton. Percy watched helplessly as the young hunter was crushed, the weight of his promise to protect her brother Nico settling heavily on his shoulders. The quest led them to the junkyard of the gods, a vast wasteland filled with discarded divine artifacts. It was here that Percy began to understand the true nature of their enemy. Luke, his former friend turned traitor, was working to raise Kronos, the Titan Lord of Time. The monster they sought was the Ophiotaurus, a creature whose entrails held the power to overthrow Olympus. Their path took them to the Hoover Dam, where Percy had a surprising encounter with the spirit of Rachel Dare, a clear-sighted mortal who could see through the mist. This brief meeting would have far-reaching consequences, though Percy couldn't know it at the time. As they neared their goal, the group found themselves in San Francisco, a city teeming with monsters. Here, they faced their greatest challenge yet. Mount Othrys, the Titan's base, was reforming on Mount Tamalpais, hidden from mortal eyes by the mists. It was on the slopes of Mount Tamalpais that Percy finally understood the full scope of Luke's betrayal. The former hero was not just serving Kronos. He was becoming the Titan Lord's new host. The sight of Luke's body, slowly transforming into a golden sarcophagus, filled Percy with a mixture of horror and pity. The final battle was chaos incarnate. Percy and his friends fought desperately against Luke's forces, while Atlas, the Titan, forced to hold up the sky, loomed over the battlefield. Artemis and Annabeth, both captured, struggled under the weight of the Titan's burden. In a moment of selfless courage, Percy took the weight of the sky upon his shoulders, freeing Artemis to fight Atlas. The pain was excruciating, every moment an eternity of agony. But even as his body screamed for release, Percy held on, driven by the need to save his friends and stop the rise of the Titan. The tide turned when Thalia faced Luke in single combat. Their battle was heartbreaking to watch. Two old friends, now on opposite sides of a cosmic war. In the end, Thalia's resolve proved stronger. With a final, desperate move, she sent Luke tumbling down the mountain. As the dust settled, Percy found himself changed. He had held the weight of the sky. faced down Titans, and seen the lengths to which both allies and enemies would go for their cause. The war with the Titans was no longer a distant threat. It was very real and very personal. The return to Camp Half-Blood was bittersweet. They had rescued Annabeth and stopped Atlas, but at a terrible cost. Zoe Nightshade, the brave hunter who had led the quest, had fallen in battle. Her last act was to reconcile with Artemis, who placed her in the stars as a new constellation, a final honor for a lifetime of service. But even as they mourned their losses, new challenges arose. Nico, upon learning of his sister's death, revealed himself to be a son of Hades. His powers over the dead manifested in a terrifying display of grief and rage, opening a fissure in the earth before he disappeared into the shadows. The implications were staggering. Another child of the Big Three had entered the playing field, potentially changing the course of the great prophecy, and Percy, burdened with the knowledge of Nico's existence and the promise he had failed to keep, found himself at the center of a web of secrets and divided loyalties. As winter gave way to spring, Percy stood on Half-Blood Hill, looking out over Long Island Sound. The events of the past few months had changed him, hardened him. He was no longer just a kid trying to survive in the world of gods and monsters. He was a leader, a warrior with the fate of Olympus resting on his shoulders. The Titan's curse had been lifted, but Percy knew that greater burdens lay ahead. The final battle with Kronos was coming, and he would need every ounce of courage, skill, and loyalty he had gained to face it. As he turned back towards camp, Percy caught sight of Annabeth, her blonde hair glowing in the sunset. Their eyes met, and a wordless understanding passed between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The prophecy's words echoed in Percy's mind. A half-blood of the eldest gods shall reach 16 against all odds, and see the world in endless sleep. The hero's soul, cursed blade shall reap. A single choice shall end his days, Olympus to preserve or raise. His 16th birthday was approaching, and with it, the fulfillment of the great prophecy. But as Percy watched his friends training in the distance, determination filled him. He had defied prophecies before. Whatever fate had in store, he would meet it head-on, with his friends by his side. The Titan's curse had tested him as never before, but it had also shown him the true strength of friendship, the power of choice, and the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Percy Jackson, son of Poseidon, hero of Olympus, squared his shoulders and walked back into camp.